Parents cut me out of there because I'm infertile. According to my wife, you don't need the money. You have no heirs, no family to support. So I cut off ties with them, but they heard about my success and my wife's pregnancy. My name is Charlie. I'm 31 years old, and I've been married to my wife for 6 years now. We live a comfortable life. She makes good money at her job, and I have my own stable income working part-time at a company. My parents are what you'd call well-off people, living in a beautiful house in the suburbs with enough money to enjoy their retirement. But with their wealth comes their unwavering conservative views and an iron grip on traditional family values. From the day I was born, my father drilled one message into my head: a man's purpose is to create a family and have children. Everything else is secondary. Growing up alongside my brother, Adam, we heard the same speeches over and over. Boys, you need to get married as soon as possible. Don't waste time pursuing careers. That's not what men are meant for. They promised us everything would always be equal between us, including their inheritance, as long as we follow their prescribed path to happiness. Adam took their words to heart. He got married right after high school graduation, skipping college entirely. Now he's already a father of 2 beautiful children. My parents beam with pride every time they talk about him, which is pretty much all the time. I chose a different path. After high school, I went to college, got my degree, and landed a job before I even thought about marriage. When I finally did get married, it was because I was ready, not because my parents thought it was time. My wife and I made a conscious decision not to have children right away. We wanted to enjoy our time together, travel a bit, and establish ourselves in our careers first. But every single family visit turns into an interrogation about my reproductive plans. Last Sunday was no different. Dad cornered me in the kitchen while I was helping with dinner. "Charlie, look at your brother," he said, gesturing toward Adam. "He's already given me 2 grandchildren and wants to have a 3rd baby. When are you going to start your family?" "Dad, we've talked about this," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "We're not ready yet." "Not ready?" He scoffed. "You're not getting any younger, you know. Adam was already a father at your age." The constant comparisons to Adam, the never-ending pressure about having babies, the disapproving looks, it all grated on my nerves more than I could express. Every family dinner, every phone call, every text message somehow circled back to the same topic. When was I going to fulfill my purpose as a man and start having children? Every morning, I'd wake up to find my phone flooded with messages from him, links to articles with titles like 10 Ways to Boost Your Fertility Naturally or Best Positions to Conceive. He'd forward information about reproductive clinics, complete with doctor recommendations and success rates. Sometimes I'd come home from work to find packages at my doorstep, books about pregnancy, childbirth, and parenting that I never asked for. "Did you read that article I sent about fertility foods?" He'd text at 7 a.m. "Dad, I'm getting ready for work," I'd reply. "Always work with you. That's exactly why you're not getting anyone pregnant yet. You need to prioritize." I started dreading the notification sound on my phone. Each ping could be another reminder of my apparent failure as a man. One day, he sent me a full schedule of a nearby fertility clinic's consultation hours, along with a note: "I've already asked about their earliest available appointment." After 6 years of marriage, my wife and I finally decided to try for a baby. It wasn't because of Dad's pressure, at least, that's what I told myself. We felt ready, or as ready as anyone can ever be for such a life-changing decision. But month after month passed and nothing happened. "Maybe we should see a specialist," I suggested one evening, sitting on the edge of our bed after another disappointing pregnancy test. "Just to check if everything's okay?" "Yeah. We probably should," my wife agreed, though she didn't look up from her phone. "Let's look into some clinics next week." We had this conversation several times over the following months. Sometimes in the kitchen while making dinner, sometimes while watching TV, sometimes right before bed. But somehow, we never actually made those appointments. There was always something: a big project at work, a business trip, family obligations. Deep down, I think we were both afraid of what we might discover. Then came that infamous dinner at my parents' house. The dining room was filled with the usual sounds: silverware clinking against plates, Adam's kids giggling at the kids' table, Dad's voice rising above it all as he gushed about Adam's 3rd child on the way. "Just look at your brother," Dad said, beaming at the thought of another grandchild. 3 beautiful children. "And you, Charlie? When are you going to give me some grandchildren? You need to get someone pregnant immediately." I pushed my peas around my plate, preparing my usual defense about timing and readiness. But before I could speak, my wife cleared her throat. Something about the sound made everyone at the table look at her. "Actually," she said, her voice unnaturally steady, "we think Charlie might be infertile. That's probably why we haven't been able to conceive." The words hit me like a bucket of ice water. My fork slipped from my fingers and clattered against the china plate, but I barely heard it over the rushing in my ears. "We think?" Who was this we? We hadn't discussed this. We hadn't even been to a doctor. We hadn't done any tests. Where was this coming from? My father's reaction to my wife's words was immediate and explosive. He literally jumped up from his chair, knocking over his wine glass. Red liquid spread across the white tablecloth like blood, but he didn't even notice. I knew it. He screamed, pacing around the dining room like a caged animal. I knew this would happen to you, Charlie. Didn't I warn you? Didn't I tell you exactly this would happen? I sat there frozen in my chair as he continued his tirade. His face was red and spittle flew from his mouth as he shouted. This is what happens when you put career before family, he continued, his face red with anger. You should have settled down years ago, found a good woman to start a family with. And now look at you, over 30 and no children. Your chances get lower every year. Dad, stop it, I managed to say, but he was too far gone to listen. You should have gone to the hospital years ago. Started treatment when you still had a chance. He grabbed the back of his chair, his knuckles white. But now it's too late. You're too old, Charlie. Too old. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own father speaking to me like this. But he wasn't done. He leaned across the table, his eyes wild. And even if by some miracle your wife does get pregnant, he hissed, she'll probably give birth to some kind of freak. That's what happens when men wait too long. Something snapped inside me. I stood up so quickly, my chair fell backward with a crash. Enough. I shouted back. I will decide for myself what I need to do and when I want to have children. This is my life, not yours. That's when he dropped the bomb. Oh, you'll decide? Dad's laugh was ugly and sharp. Well, your mother and I have made our decision too. We've decided the inheritance, all of it goes to Adam. No more splitting it in half like we planned. I turned to look at my brother. Adam sat there, one hand around his pregnant wife, practically glowing with satisfaction. He didn't even have the decency to pretend this was news to him or show any sympathy for me. You don't need the money anyway, Dad continued, his voice dripping with venom. What would you use it for? You have no heirs, no family to support. But Adam, he'll have 3 children to take care of. He needs the financial security. He deserves it. The dining room started spinning. All those years of being told everything would be equal, all those promises of fairness between brothers, it had all been a lie. Or rather, it had all been conditional on me following their exact prescription for my life. 3 children to feed and educate. Dad was still ranting, gesturing at Adam. 3 children who will carry on our family name and values. 3 children who need their future secured. While you'll have nothing. No children, no inheritance, nothing. I looked around the table at my smug brother, my ranting father, my silent mother who wouldn't meet my eyes, and my wife who had just betrayed me in the worst possible way. These people who claimed to love me had been plotting behind my back using my supposed infertility, which hadn't even been medically confirmed, as an excuse to cut me out of my inheritance. The months after the disastrous family dinner passed in a blur of silence. No calls from Dad, no texts from Adam, no weekend visits to my parents' house. The quiet should have been peaceful, but it felt heavy, like the calm before a storm. I thought at least my wife would be on my side after everything that happened. After all, we were supposed to be partners, facing my family's disapproval together. But she didn't even apologize for talking about my supposed infertility. One evening, after finishing dinner in our small rented apartment, I decided it was time to address the elephant in the room. I think we should go to the fertility clinic, I said, watching her face carefully. Not for my parents, but for us. We need to know if there's really something wrong. She put down her fork and stared at her plate for what felt like an eternity. When she finally looked up, I didn't recognize the coldness in her eyes. I don't want to get tested, she said flatly. In fact, I don't want to have children with you anymore. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? You're probably infertile. She spoke matter-of-factly as if discussing the weather. And I'm sure the problem isn't with me. I felt like I was drowning. How can you say that? We haven't even been tested. You have no idea if. Look around you, Charlie. She interrupted, gesturing at our modest apartment. Even if by some miracle you could father a child, where would we raise it? In this tiny rental? We were supposed to have your inheritance to buy a house, to give our children a proper home, but now she laughed bitterly. Now we have nothing. The pieces suddenly clicked into place. All those years of patiently attending family dinners, of tolerating my father's criticism, of agreeing to wait to have children, it had never been about supporting my choices. She'd been waiting for the inheritance, counting on my parents' money to build our future. So that's what this was all about? My voice sounded strange in my own ears. The inheritance? Then why did you tell them that I was infertile? She stood up, pushing her chair back with a screech against the floor. I'm tired of all of this, Charlie. The drama with your family, the pressure about babies, the uncertainty. I'm just tired. I'm leaving. Just like that, in our small kitchen with dirty dishes still on the table, my wife of 6 years announced she was walking out on our marriage. Not because of love lost or growing apart, but because my parents' money was no longer part of the equation. The first month after my wife left was the darkest period of my life. I barely ate, hardly slept, and cried more than I'd like to admit. My coworkers noticed something was wrong, but I kept them at arm's length. Finally, one of my colleagues quietly slipped me their therapist's business card. Just think about it, he said. I stared at that card for 3 days before making the call. It turned out to be the best decision I could have made. Dr. Samuel Mitchell became my lifeline. You can't change other people's actions, he told me during one session, but you can change how you respond to them. What would you do with your life if you weren't trying to please your parents or support your wife? That question hit home. I'd spent so many years trying to balance everyone else's expectations that I'd lost sight of my own dreams. But now, with my evenings free from family dinners and my weekends no longer revolving around my wife's schedule, I had time. I threw myself into my job with newfound energy. All those hours I used to spend listening to my father's criticism or managing my wife's moods, I now invested in my career. I stayed late at the office, took on additional projects, and finally started speaking up in meetings with ideas I'd been too timid to share before. My boss called me into her office one day. "Charlie, I've been watching your performance lately," she said. "You've really stepped up. How would you feel about heading up the new development division?" Just like that, my career took off. The promotion came with a substantial raise, and suddenly I was the one making decisions, leading teams, and driving projects forward. My salary doubled, then tripled. 2 years flew by. I saved aggressively, worked tirelessly, and finally bought myself a beautiful apartment in one of the city's best neighborhoods. 3 bedrooms, a modern kitchen, floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the park, everything I'd always wanted but had been told I needed a woman's money or my parents' inheritance to achieve. I was in my new home office, reviewing quarterly reports, when my phone rang. My father's number flashed on the screen. For a moment, I considered not answering, but something made me pick up. "Charlie?" His voice was tentative, different from his usual commanding tone. "I've heard from Uncle Larry that you're doing very well at work. He said you're some kind of boss now? And that you bought yourself a luxury apartment?" I could hear the mixture of surprise and jealousy in his voice, as if my success without a wife or his money was somehow offensive. "Yes, I did," I replied curtly, hoping to end the conversation quickly. But he pressed on. "Listen, son, why don't you come over for dinner? It's been so long since we've talked. Adam's kids are getting so big. You haven't even met little Teresa yet. She's such a darling baby. You really should get to know your nephews and niece." I cut him off. "After what you and Mom did to me? After how you treated me?" My voice was steady, controlled. "No, Dad. I don't want to meet Adam's children. I don't want to have dinner. I don't want anything to do with any of you anymore. We're done." Before he could respond, I hung up and blocked his number. Life has a funny way of surprising you when you least expect it. I met Jane at a business conference where she was one of the keynote speakers. She owned a successful tech company and had the kind of confidence that came from building something from nothing, not from riding on family money or inheritance. We started dating, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I was with someone who saw me as an equal, not as a potential sperm donor or a ticket to financial security. She admired my career success and never once asked about when I planned to have children. 6 months into our relationship, she started feeling nauseous in the mornings. At first, she blamed it on stress from a big project at work. But when she missed her period, she bought a pregnancy test with shaking hands. 2 pink lines appeared almost immediately. She spent 3 days terrified to tell me. After everything that happened with her ex-husband, she was scared of how I might react. Would I think she trapped me? Would I run away? Would I suggest she get rid of it? Finally, one evening over dinner at her place, she gathered her courage. "Charlie, I need to tell you something," she started, her voice trembling. "I'm pregnant." I put down my fork and stared at her. The silence stretched for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. Then, to her complete surprise, a huge smile spread across my face. "Really? That's amazing." I jumped up from my chair and pulled her into a hug. "Marry me. I love you. I want to spend my life with you, and now we're having a baby. It's perfect timing." We got married the following week, just us, a judge, and 2 witnesses from work. No fancy ceremony. No family drama, no father trying to control every detail. It was exactly what I wanted. Life settled into a happy routine. Jane and I moved in together, combining our lives with surprising ease. Her pregnancy progressed normally, and for the first time in years, I felt truly at peace. Then, 7 months into her pregnancy, I ran into my father at the grocery store. I was reaching for a box of cereal when I heard a familiar gasp behind me. "Charlie?" His voice was barely a whisper. "Jane's. She's pregnant?" I turned around slowly, looking at my father who stood there, shopping basket dangling forgotten from his arm, staring like he'd seen a ghost. "Oh, son," he said, his eyes filling with tears. "I'm so happy to see this. And I heard about your success at work, about everything you've achieved. I'm so proud." "Don't." I cut him off. But he pressed on. "I want to fix things, Charlie. I've been thinking, I want to change my will again. I'll call the notary tomorrow. We can make everything equal again, like it should have been all along." I couldn't help but laugh. "Keep your money, Dad. I have a successful career, a loving wife who happens to be quite wealthy herself, and I make enough money that I could earn your entire inheritance in a couple of years of work. Give it all to Adam." I don't want or need anything from you or Mom anymore. And I don't want to see any of you ever again. The day after I ran into Dad at the grocery store, my phone rang with Adam's number. I almost didn't answer it, but I figured I might as well deal with this now. How dare you? Adam's voice was thick with tears. How dare you try to take my money? What are you talking about? Dad told me everything. How you met him yesterday, showing off Jane's pregnancy, trying to get back into the will. He was practically shrieking no. That money is mine. I have 3 children to think about. I waited for him to run out of breath before responding, keeping my voice deliberately calm. Adam, I don't want the money. I literally told Dad to give it all to you. Liar. You're just jealous because I have 3 children and listen carefully, I interrupted. I don't want anything from you, from Mom or from Dad. I have my own money, my own life. I just want all of you to leave me alone and forget about me. But apparently that was too much to ask. Dad started showing up everywhere, outside my office building, at my favorite coffee shop, in the parking lot of my apartment complex. At first, I thought these were coincidences, but they happened too frequently. Then one evening, I heard someone pounding on my front door. Through the peephole, I saw Dad standing there, clutching his briefcase. Charlie, open the door. I know you're in there. He called out. I'm your father. You can't shut me out. I have a right to be part of my grandchild's life. I didn't respond. He kept coming back day after day, sometimes multiple times a day. He'd stand in the hallway alternating between pleading and demanding. Please, son, just talk to me. You're being selfish, keeping my grandchild from me. I just want to be part of your life again. It was exhausting. Jane's blood pressure started rising, not good for the baby, and I was constantly on edge. The final straw came when he somehow got my private email address and started bombing my inbox with messages. I finally opened the door one day when he was in the middle of another of his surprise visits. This stops now, I said firmly. If you don't leave me alone, I'm calling the police and filing for harassment. You wouldn't dare, he gasped. I'm your father. Try me. And you know what else? I know how much you care about what the family thinks of you. How do you think Uncle Larry and Aunt Georgia would react if they knew the full story? If they knew how you and Mom treated me? How you used my supposed infertility to cut me out of the inheritance? Dad's face went pale. His precious reputation in the family was everything to him. That finally got through to him. He took a step back, clutching his briefcase like a shield. Life has a strange way of working out sometimes. Here I am, my wife 9 months pregnant, sitting in the nursery we've just finished decorating, and feeling more at peace than I ever have in my life. Jane and I chose a gentle yellow for the walls, and the afternoon sun streaming through the windows makes the whole room glow like honey. It's funny how different life can be when you're with the right person. Jane's father, Larry, calls me almost every day to check on us and share advice about pregnancy and parenthood. But unlike my own father's suffocating pressure, Larry's concern comes from a place of genuine love and respect. You know, Larry told me last week during Sunday dinner at their house, I've never seen Jane happier than she's been since meeting you. Jane's family has become my family now. Her brothers treat me like one of their own, always including me in their group chats and guys' nights out. Though lately, those have become guys' nights in with Jane's huge belly. Her mother has already started planning shopping trips with her future grandchild. Sometimes, during quiet moments like this, I think back to those years when my ex-wife couldn't get pregnant. All that pressure from my parents, all those accusations about my fertility, all that stress and anxiety. I'm convinced now that was the real reason. How could we have been ready to create new life when I was constantly under siege? The irony doesn't escape me. My father's desperate push for grandchildren might have been exactly what prevented me from having them. Now that I'm away from all that toxic pressure, living life on my own terms, pregnancy happened naturally and easily for us. Last week, I was going through some old boxes and found a stack of those fertility books my father used to leave on my doorstep. I threw them straight into the recycling bin. My new life doesn't have room for those painful reminders. Instead, our house is filled with happy preparations for the baby. I built the crib myself, even though we could have easily bought one. I want our child to have something made with love, I said. Her brother helped me organize the closet full of tiny clothes, and her father gave us the beautiful rocking chair that all his children were nursed in. Have you thought about what you'll do if your parents try to contact you after the baby is born? Jane asked me once. They're not part of our lives. I replied simply. This baby already has all the grandparents they need with your mom and dad. And I mean it. The peace I've found in this new life with my loving wife, my successful career, my supportive in-laws, is worth more than any inheritance or family obligation. Sometimes building your own happiness means leaving behind the people who try to define it for you. Now, as I sit here in this sunny nursery, feeling our baby move inside Jane, I know I made the right choice. The path to this moment wasn't easy, but it led me exactly where I needed to be. In just a few weeks, Jane will become a mother and I'll become a father, and I already know what kind of parent I want to be. The kind that supports, not suffocates, that loves unconditionally, not transactionally, that celebrates their child's choices instead of trying to control them.